Most people picture a marriage ending in a screaming match, slammed doors, someone throwing a plate. I've watched marriages die for almost 80 years, and I'm here to tell you, that's not how it happens. Not the ones that last 30 years and then quietly fall apart. Those marriages don't end at midnight with tears. They end at the breakfast table, on a Tuesday when two people eat eggs in the same room and don't look up. I watched my oldest friend lose her husband that way. 41 years. She said there was never a single big fight. That was the problem. By the time she finally said the word divorce, they hadn't had a real argument in almost a decade. He thought they were fine. She had been gone for years. Here is the thing almost nobody tells you about long marriages. The moment a couple stops fighting is often the moment the marriage is already dead. Silence is not peace. Silence in a home where there used to be voices is the sound of someone giving up. I want to show you today what the quiet actually means and what you can still do if you catch it in time. There is a clinical name for what happens next, and it helps to understand it. Researchers call it negative sentiment override. In plain words, it means that once enough hurt piles up between two people, everything starts sounding like an attack. He says, "Did you move my keys?" And she hears, "You are careless, you ruined my day." She says, "I made coffee," and he hears, "I made it because you never do." Neutral words get filtered through a dark lens. Kind words get disbelieved. That is the override. The negative story of the marriage becomes louder than any single sentence inside it. Dr. John Gottman spent over 40 years watching couples in a laboratory, measuring their heart rates, recording their words. He found something simple and brutal. In strong marriages, when one partner reaches out, a sigh, a joke, a small complaint, a hand on the arm, the other partner turns toward them about 86% of the time. In marriages that eventually fail, that number drops to 33%. 2 out of 3 small moments ignored. Over 30 years, that is millions of tiny turnings away. And here's the part people miss. Couples in that failing pattern often stop fighting. They don't stop because the problem got solved. They stop because they ran out of hope that fighting would change anything. The husband thinks, "Good, she finally let it go." The wife thinks, "Why would I waste another word on this?" He calls it peace. She calls it the end. They are sitting at the same table, using the same word, meaning opposite things. Now I want to explain something that costs marriages more than almost anything else, because almost nobody recognizes it when it is happening. It is called flooding. When one partner, most often the husband, feels attacked or overwhelmed, his heart rate can shoot past 100 beats a minute in a few seconds. His body floods with stress hormones. The part of the brain responsible for listening, for patience, for finding the right words, the prefrontal cortex, essentially goes offline. He is not choosing to stop talking. Biologically, he cannot talk well in that state. So he goes quiet. He walks out, he stares at the floor. He says, "I don't want to discuss this right now." This is called stonewalling. The research is consistent. About 85% of stonewalling in heterosexual conflict comes from the man. It looks like cruelty. It looks like not caring. To the woman standing across from him, it feels like being erased. But inside him, it is not indifference. It is panic. His nervous system has decided the conversation is a physical threat. Now here is the tragedy. She steps closer because silence from someone you love feels like drowning. She speaks louder. She asks harder questions. She's trying to pull him back. And every step she takes toward him, his heart rate climbs higher and he pulls further away. She pursues because she is frightened. He withdraws because he is frightened. Both of them, in that moment, believe they are the only one being abandoned. I've sat with women who spent 30 years thinking their husbands despised them. And I've sat with men who spent 30 years thinking their wives were impossible to please. They were both half right and both completely wrong. There is another weight inside a long marriage that almost nobody sees and almost nobody carries equally. It has a name now. Researchers call it cognitive labor or the mental load. It is not the dishes, it is not the lawn. It is everything that happens in a wife's head before a single task ever gets done. Anticipating the doctor's appointment before the cough becomes pneumonia. Remembering which grandchild is allergic to what. Noticing that the roof is starting to leak. Choosing the gift. Writing the card. Scheduling the call to his mother. Researcher Allison Daminger found that women carry roughly 80% of this invisible work, even in marriages where the physical chores are split. This is what quietly kills romance over 30 years. When a wife is anticipating, researching, deciding, and monitoring for two grown adults, her husband slowly stops being a partner in her mind. He becomes another person she has to manage. You cannot feel desire for someone you are supervising. That is not a character flaw. That is biology. Resentment and attraction cannot live in the same room for long. And this is why the divorce statistics look the way they do. Women initiate about 69% of all divorces in heterosexual marriages. In the midlife and later years, that number stays right around 2/3. Men are shocked. They say, "I never saw it coming." And they didn't, because the wife didn't leave suddenly. She left slowly, over 10 or 15 years, in small silent moments nobody wrote down. She didn't wake up one morning unhappy. She had been drowning quietly for years, and nobody in the house noticed, because she kept making the coffee, kept sending the birthday cards, kept holding the whole calendar in her head. She stopped complaining long before she stopped caring. There is a pattern clinicians call the walk-away wife. It is one of the most misunderstood phases of a long marriage. For years, sometimes decades, she complains. She asks. She suggests therapy. She cries at the kitchen table. And then one day she stops. The husband exhales. He thinks, finally, she's happy. She is not happy. She has already left. She is just still living in the house. She has started grieving the marriage while sleeping next to it. And by the time he figures out what the silence means, she has already been gone, in every way that matters, for 3 or 4 years. Now, here is what I wish every couple knew. Silence in a marriage is not only painful, it is biologically dangerous. Dr. Janice Kiekult Glaser at Ohio State did a remarkable study. She put small, identical wounds on the arms of married volunteers, then had them discuss a tense topic for half an hour. The couples who spoke to each other with hostility healed their wounds about 40% more slowly than the kinder couples. 2 full days longer from a single 30-minute fight, their blood showed higher levels of inflammation the next morning. The marriage was literally slowing their body's ability to heal. Think about what that means over 30 years of cold breakfast. Loneliness inside a marriage is worse than being alone. When you live alone, your body knows it is alone and adjusts. When you are lonely 2 feet away from someone who used to love you, your nervous system never settles. Your stress hormones stay elevated. Your immune system grows tired. This is not poetry. This is measurable in blood. A cold marriage does not just make you sad, it ages you. It is, in the most literal sense, a slow poison you are drinking every morning in a quiet kitchen. Now I want to give you hope, because there is hope, and the research is surprisingly clear about what works. People assume you fix a dying marriage with grand gestures, the weekend trip, the jewelry, the dramatic apology. The evidence says almost the opposite. What saves marriages is small and daily. Gottman studied thousands of couples and found that the ones who stayed connected invested about 6 hours a week in each other, not in fireworks. In a 20-minute conversation about the day, a kiss that lasts longer than a second, asking how a meeting went and listening for the answer, a ritual of connection before bed. 6 hours spread across 7 days. That is the whole secret. Second, there is one behavior in husbands that predicts whether a marriage survives more than almost any other. It is called accepting influence. When a wife says, "I don't feel heard," a husband who can say, "Tell me more, I want to understand," instead of, "Here's why you're wrong," changes the entire future of the marriage. In Gottman's data, men who refused to accept influence from their wives had about an 81% chance of their marriage failing. Accepting influence is not losing. It is the grown-up act of saying, "Her reality is real, and I will let it change me." Third, and this one surprises people the most, how you handle good news matters more than how you handle fights. Researcher Shelley Gable showed that when your partner tells you something that made them happy, a small win at work, a compliment from a friend, your response in that moment is a bigger predictor of the marriage than your behavior in conflict. "That's nice" is not enough. Tell me everything is a marriage saver. Joy shared fully is glue. Joy met with a flat face is acid. And now I must tell you the hardest part honestly. Sometimes, by the time one partner wakes up and wants to try again, the other partner's armor has grown too thick. She has protected herself for so long that his warmth cannot reach her anymore. Repair is still possible, but it asks the awakened partner to be patient and steady for a long time without demanding she melt on their schedule. So I want you to picture that breakfast table again. 2 people. Coffee, a folded newspaper, quiet. At the start of this video, it looked like an ordinary morning. I hope you can see it differently now. That silence is not neutral. It is asking a question neither person has said out loud in a long time. Does anyone still see me? My direct word to you, and I say this with love, is this: do not wait for the fight. Do not wait for the crisis. Watch for the silence. When you stop being asked how your day was. When good news gets a flat answer. When you notice you have stopped sharing small things because you've learned they don't land. That is the warning. That is the moment to turn toward the person across from you, not away. Not next month. Not after the holidays. Today. At breakfast. Reach across the table. Ask a real question. Listen for the real answer. Tell them the small thing that made you smile yesterday. A marriage does not die because 2 people stop loving each other. It dies because 2 people stop turning toward each other. You still have time. Turn toward them today.